gloria militar, alla gloria militar, alla gloria militar.
Well, howdy do everyone, and welcome back to the...
My youngest child was born while we lived in this house. We brought him home from the hospital to this house. Meredith sanded all those down and stained them darker because they were a really light color, they were ugly, and they were faded, and they were gross.
Yep, and here's the first shocker. Figured it out yet? I bought Matt and Meredith's first home. From the comment section in part 1 of this video, many of you guys thought we'd figured out a way to keep our sweet little College Station home in the family. But that, sadly, was not the case. And then some of you wonderful people just sincerely hoped that that sweet little house would just continue to serve and bless good families forever. And that's my wish too. So yep, that's the shocker. Actually, that's just kind of part of the shock, or maybe we ought to call that just a zap, because the real shock comes in the latter parts of this video. And I'm sure most of you saw Matt's video where he was in this house, he discussed selling it, and he also discussed the history of his little family in this house.
This is perfect. I bought this house in 2012 for $125,000. Zillow today says this house is valued at $326,000.
Yeah, Matt and Meredith lived in this house with the kids for about 4 years, at which time they moved to a bigger house and then rented this house out to some friends and family for about $1,500 a month.
And I know some of you guys who actually know about investing are gonna be like, that was not a very good return on a house that's worth that much. We could have rented it for a lot more. We just always had it rented to friends, family, some people who worked with us. Just always kept it rented with people we knew, which actually was really convenient because if little things would break, they would just fix them because they were appreciative. So we always had the rent kind of low to make it easy for the people we liked to stay here and want to stay here.
And after that, Matt continued to discuss his financial status, especially with the resort, the big loan that he had on that, and the 7% interest rate that it carries.
And so I kind of thought we would keep this house forever. It's paid off, it makes money passively, why not? See, the thing is, I may or may not have just bought a resort. I did not buy the resort with cash. It is not paid off. I put a huge down payment on it, and I still have a huge note on it. 7% is a lot. And the way to get rid of debt is to not pay the monthly payment, it's to pay it down fast. It's what I did with this house. We paid this house off in 2 years.
But being the frugal type that he is, Matt always seems to fall back on living and buying below your means.
But I would highly recommend, especially if you're a young person or a young family, buy yourself a little house, smaller than what you want and cheaper than what you can afford. When we first started looking for a house, the bank told us based on our credit, we could buy a house that cost $300,000. And they're like, dang, we went and looked at some $300,000 houses and holy cow, those were nice. We were like, this feels right.
But Matt and Meredith resisted the social pressure and that instant gratification thing that drags so many good people down into debtor's prison. I had already warned Matt, as well as the rest of my kids, many times about how banks and credit card companies will try to set the hook and reel you in, and then they've got you where they want you, and you have to pay dearly to get out of that position. But one really good thing, Matt was already a big fan of one of my great heroes.
But I was super into Dave Ramsey. He's a financial guy, and he makes courses on how to get ahead financially. And his biggest thing is paying off debt and not getting more debt.
Yeah, and even Matt had a rough personal battle with resisting temptation.
The car of my dreams, the car that I've wanted for so long, the exact one, color, spec, everything, is 10 minutes away from me. And I could sell this house right now and go down there and almost buy the entire thing cash. I might be able to talk them down. I might be able to get that thing just straight up trade for this house. It's my dream car, right? I deserve that, right? But am I gonna do that? Nah. Dave Ramsey got me.
And actually, it was good common sense that got him.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna use this house to pay down debt, to try to not get buried under this freaking abandoned resort project that is trying really hard to bury me.
And Matt went on to advise his audience to avoid the peer pressure, the temptations, and the scams of modern marketing. And on my channel, as you well know, I've never talked very much about personal finances or personal gains or any of that motivational speaker kind of thing that Matt is so good at. You know, the part where he says, do something today that will make your tomorrow better than your yesterday. And that's good, and that's really good for young people to hear that, to get that drive and get going early. On my channel, as you all know, it's always kind of been about kindness more than anything else. And I guess if I had to put a slogan on it, it would be something like, do something for someone else today so their tomorrow will be better than their yesterday. You know, it's that kindness thing that we all talk about. So this is kind of an unusual place for me to be in because we're going to start talking about some finances here real quickly. When I saw where Matt was going with his video talking about how he's made money with this, I kind of thought, well, what I'm doing, buying this little house, selling the house in College Station, it all kind of fits into that too. And this is not my forte. This is not in my comfort zone to talk about money. But for those of you that are struggling, and especially people that are just starting out, maybe it will give them some ideas to think about and some strategies to use, things that have really worked well for both me and Matt. And for those of you that are older, for those of you that are 50 and on up, like my age, well, this doesn't exclude you because there's a lot of you out there in all age groups that have come upon rough times. The world is a hard place to live in. And not all of us are blessed all the time. We've hit some pretty rough patches myself. I remember one time I went into my financial advisor, Uncle Floyd, and he took one look at me and he said, "Why the long face, Lee?" And I said, and this was back when we were struggling a bit, and I said, well, I lost $10,000 today. And this was back when I didn't need to be losing $10,000. And Floyd looked at me and he said, well, can you do anything about it? And I said, no, I can't. I said, I signed my name on the line and everything just kind of blew up and I have lost that money. I've got to write him a check. And Floyd said, so you can't do anything about it. There's no recourse, right? And I said, that's exactly right. And he said, well, he said, Lee, he said, you'll be fine. You'll do just fine, but we don't win them all. He said, you're going to lose every now and then. And he said, this is just one of those times. And he said, the main thing, don't fret about it, pay it, forget about it, and go on and go be productive. So today, the big shocker, I'm going to show you the actual financial deal between me and Matt and all the steps that we each took in order to optimize our own financial position in this deal. And like I said, this is the shocker. So we will first start with Matt. He bought this beautiful little home. In 2012, he paid $125,000 for it. He recently sold it to me for $326,000. And that yielded a profit of $201,000. And like I said earlier, he and Meredith and the kids lived in this house for 4 years. And then for the next 7 years, this house was rented out at $1,500 a month, which yielded him $126,000. So if you total up the profit from the sale and the income he made from the rent, the grand total is $327,000 over 11 years. Not bad. But it doesn't end there. If you'll remember, Matt said he was going to put that money at $327,000 toward the note on the resort. And that in turn, not only will that big hunk of money going in there knock the principal down by $327,000, but it will also take a bunch of the interest off the note for the future years. 7% interest on $327,000 is $22,890 per. More than likely, Matt, knowing how Matt is, he'll probably have it about 10 years. And if that is indeed the case, this one move, not only did it knock $327,000 off the price of his resort, and you add to it the $228,900 that he's going to profit from just having the interest lowered, you come up with a grand total of $555,900. So think about that. $500,000 being made from $125,000 investment in 11 years. That's not a bad deal, and especially when you consider it's passive income. And considering my side of the transaction and thinking about that sweet little house in College Station, I bought it in 2005 for $92,000. We sold it a few weeks ago for $325,000, which yielded us a profit of $233,000. And as you all know from watching that last video, when the kids were in there, we also had other students in there renting out the other 2 bedrooms. One year, Matt and Mark were both there, so we only rented out 1 bedroom, but most of the time it was one of our kids and 2 other kids. When Jackie and Mark lived there, we didn't get any rent that year. They just basically paid enough to cover the insurance and taxes. And for the last 3 years, none of our kids have been there, so we've had 3 students paying full rent. And when I say full rent, we have them paying $6,000 a year a piece for a 12-month lease. And the average 12-month lease in that town back in 2005 when we started out was $9,000. So we were giving them a really good deal then. These kids here at the end got a super deal. But nevertheless, here's the rental transaction for each year. You can see who was there when and how much money we made on that sweet little house at that year. And at the end of all these years, when you put it all together, the rent that we made totaled $216,000. So when you add the profit from the sale and the profit from the rent together, it comes up to $449,000 that we made from a $92,000 investment way back in 2005. This was a little bit longer of a lease than what Matt was doing. This one went 18 years. And another interesting thing that I calculated, like I said, back then, the average dorm room, just a room for a year in that little college town, and I'm talking about one where there's 3 or 4 other kids in the house or in the condo or in the dormitory suite, those were around $9,000 a piece, and I'm talking back in 2005. So I just did some calculations. I just figured out how many years each of my kids went there, and I multiplied that times 9,000. And you can see, had I not bought this little house, I would have had to pay $144,000 just for the room, not the food, not for tuition, anything else, just for housing for the kids for those years where they went to school. And basically the way I look at that is, had we not done that, the day that Allie graduated, we would have left College Station without that $144,000 and absolutely nothing to show for it, as opposed to what we did by buying that little condo, leaving town with $449,000. It's a completely different feeling. And as you can see, the disparity swing between $449,000 and $144,000 from one extreme to the other, that's a disparity of almost $600,000. That's how important this kind of stuff is. And like Matt alluded to in his video, the taxes on these little places haven't been too bad over the years. Taxes and insurance, you know, they'll take a couple of months rent per year, worst case scenario. So that's not been too bad. But what you have to look for when you've owned them this long and you sell them is what's called capital gain taxes. Capital gain is your profit. Whatever profit you make, the government wants a piece of that profit, and in most cases, it's 20%. And the sad thing for Matt is he's going to have to pay capital gains tax on $201,000, 20% tax on that, which would leave him having to pay $40,200 in capital gains tax. And the bad part about that is the fact that he's putting it in against his note. There's no way out of that. That's a tax he has to pay. It'll come off the top. However, with the resort, I'm sure he's going to have plenty of expenses this year to offset that tax. And me, on the other hand, with a profit of $233,000, I should have to pay 20% of that just in capital gains taxes, which would be $46,600. However, the IRS has a provision if you're selling rental property and you're buying rental property, especially if it's more expensive rental property, and this is just a little bit more expensive, then that tax can be deferred. And it's deferred until you sell the property. Meaning if I take the proceeds from the College Station house and put them straight into here to buy this little house right here, I do not have to pay the capital gains tax on any profit that I made in the sale of the College Station house. Now, this is a really sticky thing. The IRS rules and regulations are very tight and very controlled. So I have not only an accountant and an attorney, but I have a capital gains specialist that I gave them all the documents, all the paperwork, and they are getting it all straight and all perfect so that there's not going to be any bobbles at all with the IRS. And the way this works on down the road, like I said, it's not tax-free, it's tax deferred, meaning I don't have to pay that, what is it, $46,600. I don't have to pay that unless I sell this house. And one of the rules is I can't sell it for a few years anyway. But what happens with that, if I never sell this house and my wife and I both pass away and this house is still in my estate, that tax, that $46,600 worth of tax disappears. So that's my goal, is to try to not have to need this money that this house would bring me if I sold it. If I can live my life to the end of it without having to sell this house for the money I need to get by or whatever, then the tax disappears, almost $50,000. So if any of you guys are in the same boat that I am, you might talk to your accountant about that, because it's worth trying, worth checking into. Free money is a good thing. So anyway, guys, the capital gains situation does change the bottom line for both me and Matt. Matt's bottom line before the capital gains tax was $555,900. And when you subtract his capital gains from it, since he has to pay that tax, it's $515,700 is his bottom line. Mine was $449,000, but I gained that capital tax. I made that money thanks to that. And granted, I may have to pay it later, but for right now, it put me up to around $495,000 on this deal. And folks, both these transactions, the little house in College Station, we paid $92,000 for it. This little house right here, Matt Meredith paid $125,000 for it. If you put these two transactions together, they have made our family over $1 million. And I don't even understand money like that. But nevertheless, these were very well researched purchases. The transactions were done very frugally, and we've just lived that way and treated these houses that way the entire time. On the other hand, though, we were very generous with these houses. We provided a very low rent for a lot of kids that were trying to get their college degrees. For all those years, kids were paying around $500 a month when anywhere else in town they'd been paying $700 or $800 a month. Matt rented this little house to all of his friends and some of his family and all for $1,500 a month when they could be getting anywhere from $1,800 to $2,200 a month for this house. So you got to have a heart in these things, and you have to do it for the right reason. God has entrusted us with these houses to do the best we can to help other people with them. And I feel good about what we've done with these little houses. Well, folks, that's about it from in here in Matt and Meredith's first home. We're gonna have to think of a name for this place. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for stopping by today. I know this was very lengthy, very boring, all numbers and paper and all that kind of stuff. No bunny rabbits and no race cars or anything like that. But anyway, thanks for being here today. It means a lot to me. I just kind of wanted to follow in on the tail of Matt's video about this little house, let you see the other side, how my numbers worked out as well as the way his did. Anyway, thanks again for being here today. Like I said, it always means a lot to me. God bless you all. I look forward to seeing you next time. And I want you to always remember I love you. Bye-bye now. So what you doing there, Al?
Neutering a dog, Dad.
All right. Who's gonna learn you?
That's a mistake.